Psychology behind womanizers. In this video, we'll go over what is a womanizer, the definition, sexual economics. This is a very interesting part because if you understand this, you will understand so many things about uh, men and women dynamics and interactions. Then we'll go over men's short-term mating, the healthier version, because believe it or not, there is. And then men's short-term mating, the unhealthy version, which is usually associated with the term womanizer. And finally, a guide for healthy relationship with the opposite sex. So first of all, what is a womanizer? A womanizer is a man who has frequent short-term relationships with women. It's that simple. A womanizer pursues multiple women just to sleep with them. So this is how womanizers are usually perceived, that their entire goal is just to sleep with women, and so this word is used in a derogatory sense for men, implying that there's something wrong with such men. But is there? That is the question we'll answer soon. So the sexual economics. At the basis of human relationships is this fact that human relationships are transactional, which means that whenever we form a relationship with someone, whenever two people form a relationship, there is something that each person brings to the table, some value that each person brings for the other person, there would be no point in forming relationships if there was no value exchange. So value exchange is inherent to relationships, which is what social exchange theory says. So we form relationships with people when we believe that they can add value to our lives. Add value, the key word here being add, not subtract value from our lives, because if people subtract value from our lives, we tend to avoid those people. We tend to not go into relationships with those people. The relationships that we form, we want them to add positive value to our lives. So what is value in itself? Like, how is it like defined? What is the definition of a value? Value simply means benefit. And in the context of relationships or transactional relationship, any kind of transactional relationship, value is equal to benefits minus cost of a transaction. So for example, when you go to a store and you buy something, in your mind you have to perceive that the benefits that you're getting from that product outweigh the costs of that product, which is the price of that product. So only when you believe that the benefits that you're getting is slightly, even if it's slightly more than the cost that the price you're paying for it, you are likely to purchase that product. Which is why obviously marketers tend to exaggerate the benefits of their products. They're just trying to influence you, to push you to purchase their products. The same thing happens in human relationships as well. Humans also try to inflate their value on many occasions, especially in the context of romantic relationships. Why? Because romantic relationships are the most are the most profound way in which this social exchange theory of value and transactional nature of the relationship manifests, because there is a lot at stake in romantic relationships. A lot of our most important needs are satisfied for romantic relationships. That is why there's a very serious transaction going there, and because of that there is a huge potential for uh, as in marketing of products, there is a huge potential for deception and uh, not having a fair value exchange, as I'll explain later. So just to make things clear, I have come up with this pie theory of romantic relationships that I came up with after analyzing hundreds of social media comments. I saw these common patterns between the things that men and women were saying, and so I came up with this pie theory. This is why this you can see this picture here. So I talked about when two people, say a man and a woman, when they enter into a relationship, both of them bring some value to the table. So this is that table, and this is there should have been two pizzas here. So one pizza uh, is the one that the guy brings, and the second that the woman brings. So what is this pie theory? What am I talking about here? So So imagine this would-be wannabe couple sitting on a table. So the guy puts his pizza on the table, and the woman puts her pizza on the table. The slices of those two pizzas, they're not equally cut, so their size is not the same. Some slices are bigger and some are smaller. So what is the biggest pie that the man brings to the table? The biggest pie that a man brings to this table is commitment, financial and emotional commitment. Because if a man gives this biggest pie to a woman, that helps the woman, because for a woman, securing a man's commitment is the most she can gain from that man, because that enhances her reproductive success, because women are biologically more inclined to seek long-term relationships, because that way they can successfully raise a few children, and then that is the maximum, that is a cap on their reproductive success. So that's what she wants most from the man, her financial and emotional commitment. So that is a commitment is the biggest pie that the man can give to the woman. And the woman's biggest pie is basically physical intimacy, sex, her youth, her beauty. So that that is what the man wants in a woman. Like when he's entering into a relationship, that is what he's seeking the most. So the men and women, what they try to do, they try to protect their biggest pies, because they know the other person is after that biggest pie. So they try to protect that pie. This is where the conflict happens, because men men's biggest pie that they can offer is not the same as the women's biggest pie. It's not like men want commitment as much as women, and women want it's not, the variables are different here. One person wants one thing the most, and the other person wants another thing the most. That's where the conflict happens between the sexes. So what is a fair social exchange? Fair social exchange, a good example of this is marriage, or a committed relationship, or a live-in relationship, where the woman provides her biggest pie, sex, and the man also provides his biggest pie, that which is commitment. So it works. It is sex for commitment basically, and it works for a lot of people. And it is a fair social exchange, because the man is happy to get sex from that woman, and the woman is also happy for the man to be committing to her. So it makes sense. All relationships work if they are based on fair social exchange. So if, as long as there is fair social exchange, the relationship works. And if either party feels that there is not a fair social exchange going there, a fair value exchange going, then that relationship starts breaking down. But fair exchange can also be established in other ways. It doesn't have to be long-term relationship. Short, like in humans we have long-term mating and short-term mating. So fair exchange can also be established in short-term mating contexts. So it's not always obviously the reason why sex is the biggest pie for women is because it's not that men want more sex than women. Obviously they both have like equal, if not more desire, like they both have equal desire for sex. But because women's sex is valued more than men's, that is why it has a higher value compared to men's men offering physical intimacies. Because it has higher value, it has higher demand. So that is why women are able to use it as a currency for commitment. So it's not that men cannot, it's not that women want sex less than men. It's just that women tend to use sex as a currency much more than men, because it is valued more. So but fair exchange can also be established in other ways, in for example in short-term mating context. So a woman's biggest pie is physical intimacy. So it's not necessary for a man to commit to her for her to give her that pie, because if a man adds value to her in other ways, for example, he's very attractive, he's very high status, for example celebrities, women tend to like give their biggest pie very easily to those people. Why? Because even though they're not committing, they are providing value to the woman in other ways. So if they may not those men may not give the biggest pie on their plate, but their other pies are also big. uh, they're also big. That's why in the woman's mind it is a fair value exchange. So that's why she is okay to have a physical relationship with that person. So it's not just in these contexts that fair value exchange can occur. So men and women try to gain the most while giving up the least. So that's the basic. So basically what men or women when what men and women do when they are dating, they're basically in their mind, this thing is going on: I want your biggest pie. So they want the biggest pie of the other person, but they don't want to offer anything in return. They want to offer as less as they can. It's the same thing as when people, when they're shopping and they want to, and when they're shopping and they bargain with the shopkeeper, they're trying to get the most for the lowest cost possible. So this is where unfair social exchange happens and all the problems happen. So let's talk about men's short-term mating healthy version, because there is a healthy version of it, believe it or not. I just touched on it. So men are evolutionarily wired to pursue short-term mating because it maximizes their reproductive success, which is why they want that, which is why the biggest uh, pie that they want from a woman, that biggest pie size, which is why they want it so bad, because it maximizes their reproductive success. So if they can get it easily, they'll get it easily, because they're not that invested in parental care and all of that stuff. But this is usually the luxury of high status men and high value. If you've read history, you know that the kings of the past, like, they had multiple wives because they were high status in those societies, so they could afford it. They could afford multiple wives, and they could afford getting these biggest pies from the women that they desired. And most men, research shows that most men who pursue short-term mating are likely to be mentally healthy. So there's nothing wrong with these people, these kings and modern day celebrities. It's not that they are fucked up in the head that they pursue short-term mating. It's just that they they are likely to have a high, if they're likely to have high status, it's likely that their self-esteem is high. Um, it's likely that they are psychologically stable, because psychological instability is a sign of a low value man. So because they're high value, because their self-esteem is high, that is why they attract a lot of women, and that is why they can get women's biggest pies without committing to them. But there's also this flip side of the coin: men short-term mating, when it becomes unhealthy. So most of the times it's just low value men who act like high value, because both see, low value men and high value men, they both want the same pie. They both want the biggest pie from a woman. But it is easier for high value men and high status men, because they have sort of reached that position in life where they can sort of attract that. But low value men also want that, but they don't want to climb up the hierarchy, so that they are in a position where they can get that. So they use these shortcuts, these deceptive shortcuts, to get that biggest pie from the woman. So they use deception, lies, and manipulation. So that they tend to have those dark triad personalities: narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. And they're likely to be unhealthy, and they are likely to have self-esteem issues, because their self-esteem issues in the first place prevented them from reaching a high status in society. So they are likely to have self-esteem issues. They're likely to have gone through childhood trauma that messed up their self-image, and they try to prove to themselves that they're worthy by sleeping with a lot of men through deception, lies, and manipulation. And they're also likely to harass and coerce, because if a woman does not agree to give her biggest pie to this low value man, and he gets disappointed, and he sort of then resorts to this physical force and harassment. And these are the type of women, of men, that women feel used by, when they have this, when if women do give them their biggest pie, they feel used. They feel that there has been an unfair value exchange. They feel like they should have reserved their biggest pie for a better man, but they don't, for whatever reason, for maybe because the deception, lies, charm, manipulation, all of, because of all of those things, they give in, and then they regret that. Women don't regret sleeping with high status men or very highly attractive men. It's, you don't hear that, but they do feel used by these men, which makes sense because they're not getting enough in return for the biggest pie. So finally, I'll talk about like how you can have better healthy relationships with the opposite sex. So first of all, get clear on what you want. Like from the start, you have to tell your potential partner whether you're interested in short-term mating or long-term mating, because as a man you might be more inclined towards short-term mating, as a woman you might be more inclined towards long-term mating, but you have to communicate that to your partner like from the start. If Here's a tip: if as a man, if as a woman you uh, see that a man straight away wants to sleep with you, wants to get physical with you straight away, that is a red flag right there, because that man is not interested in who you are as a person. So they're just trying to get something from you. The same thing applies to a woman. uh, if a woman, and if you're a man and a woman, uh, right off the bat wants marriage from you or commitment from you, she's a toxic woman, because she doesn't care who you are as a person. She's only interested in gaining that long-term commitment for herself. So if you are looking for a healthy partner, long-term or short-term, try to be friends with that person first, so that you can get to know them, and then you can get on the same page with them. Because if you form a friendship with them first, it means that you're just not after each other's biggest pies. Like if you get it, fine, that's good, but that's not that's not the basis, the foundation of your relationship. So if in my opinion, if a man or a woman is very opposed to being friends first, I think they're a red flag. So you should be careful of those people. And then when you get clear on what you want, communicate your wants and needs and expectations to your partner. uh, First you have to be clear about what you want, and then you have to communicate that. And when you communicate that, you listen to what they want. What do they want from this exchange, from this relationship? So you have to have empathy for what they want. And if you, it's likely that what you want is going to clash with what they want, and you have to reach a compromise. You have to if you can't reach a compromise, then it's just over. Then there's nothing you can do about that. And something that is difficult but important to do here is you have to be non-judgmental about their mating strategy. So you can, if a man is looking for something short term, you cannot just call him a womanizer, because his mating strategy differs from yours. And if a woman is looking for a long term relationship, you cannot call her boring, or call her she's so pure and prudent. You cannot do those things. You have to be non-judgmental about your mating strategy, because that way at least you'll have a that because this promotes at least friendship. You'll This will create a breeding ground for friendship if you're non-judgmental about each other's strategies. And the most important thing is being on the same page from the start, so that neither of the person feels used later. To avoid those feelings later, you have to be on the same page from the start and be clear on what you want. You cannot first say that you want this thing and then later change your mind and say, no, I have decided I want this now. If you do that, then make sure you do that in a way that does not harm the other person. You have to, everything you do, you have to keep in mind how it will affect your partner. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching.